Alright, I've been talking about wanting some new S Prestige models from Ibanez for a while now. I've mentioned it in many videos, and I think the S series is pretty cool in general. And of course, at Winter NAMM 2025, Ibanez have unveiled the S6570BWENT. Say that 5 times fast. This is of course alongside the new color of their multiscale S, the SML671MAM. I've been wishing for some more made in Japan Ibanez S and RGA models for some time. So let's discuss these S models here. And by the way, while I'm an Ibanez fan, I'm not sponsored by Ibanez or NAMM or anyone. And thanks to everyone in my Discord and the people who responded to the YouTube post I made about this guitar, the Made in Japan one. Alright, so let's talk about the S6570BWENT. And of course, let's start with the looks. Wow, what a top. That pale moon ebony is striking. Just amazing. Love to see Ibanez trying new things. At least it's new to me. Maybe the model in the past has had this. I do love solid finishes more and more every day, and of course, figured maple, whether it's flamed or quilted, is a classic, but this is way cool. And the black and yellow I'm personally a fan of too, because I have a black cat with yellow eyes, so cool to see them branch out from figured maple. Now here's the thing though, the headstock is black, it doesn't match the body. And that's a little surprising because there's lots of examples now of Ibanez guitars with matching finishes or figured maple on both the body and the headstock. Take this Axon Label S, for example. You've got the chameleon finish on the body, and it's also on the headstock. You also have the RG5320 that has that cosmic shadow finish, and they have it on the front of the body and the headstock. And one example, there are many examples, but one example of matching wood, there's the J Custom RG8570Z. The list goes on and on, so it's a little confusing why they made this decision, why they made this choice. Do you think it was maybe to save on cost or price, or maybe to save just a little bit of ebony? What would you think if the ebony top was a veneer, and then they had a veneer on the headstock? Some things to think about. Alright, now let's talk about the specs. And we can start with the pickups, the DiMarzios. They have the Tone Zone, the Air Norton, the True Velvet. To me, this is pretty typical Ibanez Prestige, which isn't a bad thing. These are pretty solid pickups, some good all-arounders. The first time I used them a long time ago, I thought they were okay. I have an RG655 that came with those, and I don't know, maybe I was just young, maybe I was in the pickup changing mood. I did replace them with the EMG 5766. I currently have a pair of bare knuckle aftermaths in that guitar. But as I've used other guitars with the Tone Zone and also the Air Norton and True Velvet for the 3 pickup ones, I've come to appreciate them more. So in my RG, I've got the Tone Zone in the bridge. In my J Custom, I've got all 3 pickups. And the more I use them, the more, I don't know, maybe my playing technique is improving. At least I'd hope so. But they sound better and better to me. Or maybe I'm just getting old. But moving on from that and talking about typical Prestige, an interesting choice is the Rosewood fretboard. Now these days there's a lot of ebony fretboards on the Prestiges, but not too long ago it seems like Rosewood was everywhere. And so seeing Rosewood on this guitar is interesting because my RGA is also an Axe Design Lab and it has ebony as a fretboard. So I'm wondering what the decision was here. It does seem like a missed opportunity to have an ebony board on a guitar with an ebony top. That'd be pretty neat. You could argue that the brown of the Rosewood goes with the yellow of the ebony top. Those colors do kind of work. Of course, that would be subjective. And then, of course, if you believe in tone wood, you could say the warmth of the Rosewood would balance out the brightness of the ebony. But this video isn't talking about whether tone wood is a thing or not. That's a completely separate discussion. And on the note of older style specs or more traditional specs, the fret wire, it's nickel silver, it's not stainless steel. And in this day and age, that is a pretty big talking point. So it is like on a J Custom or the Axe Design Lab, the RGA that I have. Those also have nickel silver frets. But you have other Prestiges that are a little bit cheaper because this is 2.3K USD. And you've got the 2K USD Prestiges that have the stainless steel frets. So there could be a question there like what's going on. Is it the same people or the same factory or whatever that's making these guitars that they just prefer nickel silver? Maybe they're more tooled for nickel silver and they haven't updated to be able to work with stainless steel? Who knows? It's not the absolute end of the world because while I do prefer stainless steel, I don't hate the nickel silver. It's not a deal breaker for me. And I can see the pros and cons of each. If I had to pick just one, if I was speccing out my own guitar, or if I was going to make a signature guitar or something like that, I would pick the stainless steel. I do like the smooth feel and the durability, but I don't hate the nickel silver, and I do have a bunch of guitars that have it. All right, from there we have the Super Wizard HP neck. Pretty nice. Real big fan of that neck profile. If you look at the back of the guitar, though, it has this kind of carve away at the base of the lower horn, and that's interesting. I like the spirit of it, but for my playing style at least, or in my opinion, my humble opinion, I think the carve should be on the back of the lower horn and not at the base of it. Before this S right here, I had the S Premium, that blue burst one, and that also had the carve away at the base of the horn, and I never noticed it. And on this guitar here, you can see it doesn't have the carve away at the base of the lower horn, and I don't miss it. And this is because when you're playing thumb behind the neck, you can already see the back of your hand hits the back of that lower horn. It doesn't go down here. And you can hit the 24th fret just fine without even touching the base of the cutaway, as you can see. So I like the spirit. I'm glad they're thinking about this. Some constructive feedback would be to move the location of the carve away. So I'll talk about my overall thoughts on that guitar in a bit, but let's also talk about the SML671MAM. And let's start with the looks. I think it looks pretty decent. This is just a new finish on an existing model. The last one was that kind of warm colored one. This one is the Midnight Arctic Ocean Matte, and it's a cool finish. I like how it looks on the S body. Makes it look pretty thin. I'm not the biggest fan of gold hardware on blue. Again, this is personal preference. I do like gold on black, of course. But gold on blue, it's not my favorite combination, but if you like it, power to you. It's a completely subjective thing. But talking about the looks, now I'm looking at the fretboard, and we can move on to talking about the specs. Because the fretboard is Rosewood, and I think this is another subjective take, but I think the Rosewood looked better with those warm colors. But with the blue, I'm personally not the biggest fan. I don't think it looks horrible. I don't think it looks awful, but it's not personally for me. This has the quantum pickups. I don't have any experience with the quantums, but hopefully they're better than the old Ibanez INFs. Those I was not particularly a fan of. If I was to get this guitar, I probably would replace these. Although I am a fan of the Ibanez Fusion Edge pickups. I don't think they're the absolute best pickups in the world, but they get the job done. So if they're anywhere close to that, it should be okay. I see there's a power tap switch too, and that's very interesting. It gives you a lot of tonal options. For me personally, I'm not the kind of guitarist who would use that. I do like the two humbucker setup sometimes with the middle single coil, but I primarily use the bridge and the neck pickups only. Sometimes I'll use a coil split or like a position 2 or position 4 kind of dealio. So it's an interesting thing. I probably would never use it except just to jam around with and have fun with. Now this one has stainless steel frets, and that's pretty cool. Interesting that the Made in Japan one doesn't, but this one does. I know there's different quality materials. They're probably using a more sturdy or durable nickel silver on the Made in Japan model. Perhaps there's more zinc in the alloy. And I know there's different levels of quality durability of the stainless steel. So I realize it's not just a black and white discussion of, oh, this has this material and this has that material. There's different levels of quality. But it's still great to see stainless steel on this guitar. Now the multiscale is interesting, but I'm not sure what to think of it. When I'm looking at this guitar, I'm thinking, what am I going to string this up with? What am I going to play on it? What am I going to use it for? And I see it's a 25-inch to 25.5-inch scale length. And that's interesting. My favorite tuning is drop C. So for the most part, the strings are a whole step down. And then, of course, 2 whole steps down for that C. And I personally prefer 9s in standard, 10s a whole step down. And I have a multi-scale guitar. I have an 8-string, and its lowest, shortest scale length on the treble most string is 25.5 inches. And so for that, I just use a set of 10s, 8-string 10s on that 10 to 74. And I like how that is. On my 7 strings with the uniform scale length, 26.5, I use 10s also, just have the greater tension. And I have a guitar with a 24 3/4 inch scale length, the FRM 350. And for that, I use 11s on drop C. But what am I going to use for 25 to 25.5? Maybe I'll use 10.5s. Maybe I'll just use 11s. I'm not sure. So that makes me think, what would you use? Who knows? Maybe I would keep this in standard tuning and use 10s, if I was to get it anyway. But of course, the elephant in the room, the pickups. The pickups do not follow the changing scale length. They don't slant with the bridge. And for me personally, and maybe a lot of you, that is a deal breaker. I personally enjoy the tone you get when the pickup, the bridge pickup, is closer to the bridge. Of course on here, because it has this fixed bridge, it looks like there's space in between. But if you look on something with the tremolo, you'll see the bridge looks closer. And so I like the tone you get from that. I like how that sounds. Especially with the lower strings, because I am in drop C. I want my power chords, my chugs, you know, the low notes. I want them to have that bite to stand out. I don't want my bridge pickup to sound more like a middle pickup. Who knows, maybe it's balanced out because of the multiscale. Maybe there's some tonal difference after all, with the treble side being 25 inches, and this balances it out. I haven't played the guitar or tested it, so I'm not sure. But it does give me pause, it does make me wonder. And then one final thing, I've noticed the S series without the weight of any kind of trem system tends to be a little bit neck heavy. Not too much, just a little bit. It's not unbearable, it doesn't immediately dive, but it isn't perfectly balanced. This Axion label, the S671ALB for example, it is a little bit neck heavy. It's not the end of the world, it's still plenty playable, but if it was my only guitar, it would be a little bit annoying. So what are my overall thoughts? Will I buy the made in Japan one? Well, the answer is no. Honestly, for the price, I'm not in love with it. The Rosewood fretboard's okay, the nickel silver frets are okay, but the headstock not matching is really a deal breaker for me. For this kind of price, I should love pretty much everything about it. Huge fan of the low pro bridge, the pickups are definitely workable, love the neck profile, and the looks of it are pretty cool. But it's still a no for me, especially because I have so many guitars that I do love already. And for the multiscale, am I going to buy that one? Well, unfortunately, it's also a no. I prefer a uniform scale length on my 6 strings and also 7 strings. So that's already just a non-starter for me, that's personal preference. And in terms of fixed bridge S guitars, I already have this one right here, this Axion label. But I am thrilled to see the S series getting some attention, even if it is just a new color for an existing model, and then a limited edition made in Japan model. Great to see that they haven't abandoned this series. Hopefully that means there's going to be more soon. Like I'm hoping with the RGA. I do love the 27 fret RGA that I have. It would be great just to get a regular 24 fret HH one made in Japan. Hopefully these things come to pass. Now, what would make me want to buy a new S series? For me personally, I would like to see something made in Japan, and I would be okay with just a solid color S. It doesn't have to be a crazy chameleon finish. I do like this. I think this is pretty cool. But a simple finish, maybe body binding, doesn't even need to have that. Solid color, could be matte, could be gloss. Matched headstock would be preferable. And for me, it would have to have a trem or an Evertune. Of course, would love to see the low pro again. But it would need that to help balance the guitar. I know the S series is billed as this super lightweight shred machine. But for me, the appeal is the body shape, not necessarily the weight. It's very cool how it has this arch top and this arch back, so it comes together like this. There's really no other guitar that feels like this. And that to me is where the novelty lies. Honestly, I wouldn't even mind nickel silver frets that much, although at this point I feel like I'm bargaining. Of course, if we were truly talking about wishful thinking, it would be cool to see modern specs with some retro colors. Imagine an S Prestige in desert yellow. So these are my thoughts on the S series models unveiled at the 2025 Winter NAMM show. What are your thoughts? Be sure to comment down below. You know this is YouTube, so I have to say the YouTube things. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the video, print out every frame and mail it, join the Discord, check out the Patreon, become a channel member. Check out my newest single, Jupiter Workshop. It's on all streaming services too. Shameless plug. And as always, peace.